guide us understanding them, we have Professor of Management and Vice Dean at the Wharton School, Mauro Guillén. Please give him a warm welcome. Professor Guillén, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for inviting me.
You are an expert on global market trends. So what megatrends should we be aware of, and do they differ from developed to emerging markets?
Well, I think there are two that are really critical at this point. One is population aging, which was captured in the video. And the big difference here is that all developed markets are aging very quickly in terms of their populations. But in emerging markets, we have two kinds of them. We have the ones where the population is still young, like in India or in Sub-Saharan Africa or parts of the Middle East. And then we have others like China, where the population is aging very quickly. The second trend is increasing accumulation of wealth by women. Before we know it, more than half of the wealth, the net worth in the world, will be owned by women, and that's going to make a big difference.
I like the sound of it, I must admit.
Don't get too excited.
Something we discussed yesterday was seeing this monumental shift in economic power towards Asia and Africa due to demographic changes. So what implications do you expect this to have on economic growth patterns and consumption habits?
Well, consumption is mainly driven by young people, right? Because they're the ones who purchase durable goods like homes and automobiles and appliances for the home. So younger populations mean larger consumer markets. And so before we know it, India is going to be the largest consumer market in the world. Whenever I talk to people in China, they tell me, Professor, you're wrong. China is going to be number one at everything. I disagree. India is going to have the biggest consumer market, even though China will have the largest economy. Those two things are compatible, because China invests more and exports more. So keep an eye on this. India will be the largest consumer market because it has more young people.
Do you think we underestimate the weight of India in the global economy going forward?
Oh, absolutely. And of course, there's a big unknown, which is the impact of climate change. India is overexposed to climate change because of its geography and other characteristics. But having said that, I think it is a market to watch, a consumer market to watch.
The problem with the demographic changes you've just alluded to is the fact that they have profound implications for inequality, both in terms of income and wealth distribution. So do you foresee demography influencing the trend of the rise in income and wealth inequalities?
No, absolutely. I think the biggest cleavage will be between young and older people. So most of the wealth in the world, between 60 and 80%, depending on the country, is owned by people above the age of 60. So young people are being left out so far. Now, what they're expecting is a big inheritance. But you see, most people overestimate how much of an inheritance they will get. And also the parents are living longer, so maybe there won't be much to inherit if people continue to live that long.
Now, although the mixed-age workforce of a so-called post-generational society may ease pressure on pension systems, growing retirement needs will still need to create financial and political challenges. So what strategies can be explored to ensure secure pensions for retirees? Certainly many debates here in France about that, without placing an unsustainable burden on the working population.
I think there are two ways. I mean, one is to encourage people to work longer. So here in France, for example, people on average retire at age 61, which is one of the lowest in the world. That's unsustainable. So the video said that we're living longer. That's not the only thing. We're also staying healthy longer. The health span has also expanded. So people could continue working a little bit longer. I don't want to obligate people to work longer, but we want to create incentives for people to work longer. And that would help the system. The second, of course, is immigration. But I guess there's a backlash against immigration, so that's not going to be as easy as in the past as a fix to the problem.
In terms of investment decisions, we know that generational preferences also play a significant role here. So how can investors navigate the shifting preferences of younger generations towards sustainable investments while also addressing the more risk-averse tendencies of older generations?
Well, I think companies, investment companies, advisors, everybody is going to have to be ambidextrous. That is to say, to become very good at catering to the needs of older, aging populations, but also incorporate as clients the younger folks. That's not going to be easy, but you're going to have to do both at the same time, because otherwise your competition will, and you will fall behind. So the name of the game is essentially develop different kinds of approaches, different kinds of products, come up with different marketing campaigns, use technology to try to persuade younger folks to join your company, while at the same time retaining the older generations as your customers.
And to bring it together, maybe with the rise of fintech companies and AI, of course, and established industry actors leveraging precise demographic data, how do you think new technology will transform the way individuals approach saving and investing for their long-term financial goals? What's going to change on that front?
So when it comes to savings is a habit, right? So it's important to instill that habit into younger generations. And I think technology can play a role there. It has to become a game, almost like a video game. Now we need to get into the minds and the hearts of young people in that way. And then when it comes to investing, I think the key is to provide platforms that are safe, that make investment easy, but also that educate you about the risks and the opportunities in investing. So I think technology can play a humongous role, especially among younger people. And the companies that become best at playing that game with technology, I think, will win.
And could you tell us how investors should think about or care about the megatrends you have mentioned earlier, and what are the right questions they should ask themselves?
Well, the question, I think, is very simple, is how can I ride the wave? So we have these large-scale transformations. Whenever you have, or we're going through such big transformations, in this case, demographic transformations, a lot of companies will lose out. Big opportunities will be created, but only a few of them will take advantage of those opportunities. So you have to study the data. You have to essentially tell your managers and everybody in your organization, you really need to change, because you see, the only possible response to all of these transformations is change itself. If you remain static, you know you're going to be out of whack in the future. So change is of the essence here.
I have a final question for you. Yesterday, we spent quite a lot of time talking about geopolitical risks in particular. And we've talked a lot around the risks around AI, new technology, conflict, of course. But I'd like you to tell us whether we should maybe think a little bit more about all those demographic changes you've alluded to as potential risks, or as greater risks than we think they are.
Yeah, it is a risk, and it's a risk that can be calculated. So I'm not going to say that we can make predictions regarding population with accuracy 50 years down the road, but we can certainly make them 5 or 10 years down the road. Because you see, the consumers and the workers of tomorrow have already been born, so we know how many of them there are. And we know their mortality, they know their life expectancy, and all of that. But I think the key here is to see how all of these trends come together. So you have technology, you have geopolitics, you have demography. All of these things are completely interrelated. So you have to exercise lateral thinking. You need to connect the dots. You need to essentially see how they fit into one another, because they're all interrelated.
Well, thank you so much for your insights here today, Professor Mauro Guillén. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being with us today.